Well, IGN has done it again. They somehow managed to say a bad opinion, and it's gonna get a lot of Sparking Zero fans upset. So I'm gonna go ahead and dive into Dragon Ball Sparking Zero review that IGN did, and I'm gonna go over the things that I don't agree with, and I want you guys to let me know, do you think IGN became public enemy #1 once again, like I predicted when we were going over the Edgar situation? Dragon Ball Sparking Zero review, a final flash from the past that's both fun and frustrating at times. So this was written by Jared Green, and this was posted like nighttime, so several hours ago from the time it's recording. So he pretty much goes into it's a new game, new take, and it's a direct sequel to the PS2 games. And then he says it's tougher than Vegeta's chest plate, and imbalanced in ways that are both annoying and lore accurate. Menus are labyrinth, training tips are sparse and sometimes not very useful, but every battle is crafted with the hey, let's stop there, right? So the first thing that he says that I don't agree with is that the menus are a labyrinth of whatever the fuck he trying to say crazy, right? And he says the training chips are sparse and not useful at times. I gotta disagree with that. The menus are simple. Yeah, sure, you may not like them, but they're simple. They're not confusing. It's not impossible to find certain things. But I will say that it could have been better used, but it's not bad menus. As for the training tips, I think this is one of the best training tips that a game, at least in the anime space, has given. So to say that they're sparse and not very useful, I think that's a bit disingenuous. But anyways, getting into his review, right? As we see, the first thing he says is canonically strong opponents can be just as oppressive as you expect. He says the controls are universal for all characters, but some of the people on the roster, the controls are slightly different, such as the androids where they can't power up, and characters like Janemba, who are giant, can't be grabbed. Sparking Zero makes no attempt to balance these differences either. Every time I was forced to fight a character that was canonically stronger than mine in the manga or anime, they were just oppressive in game as I expect. I didn't always like that, but I respect the commitment. Look, I played a bit of the game, and even characters that are supposed to be stronger, such as Great Vegeta, was relatively easy to deal with. The giant characters aren't too difficult to deal with as long as you know how to fight them. I think anyone who's played this game in the past knows how to deal with them, but then he takes it a step further. He says, I spent a lot of time traveling back and forth between regular fights and training mode to check and double check my understanding of when and how to use these techniques. It hasn't really helped me execute them consistently in battle. Also, compared to the modern day fighting games, Sparking Zero training options are rudimentary at best. There's no expectations to lay out frame data or hit, but so I'm gotta stop you right there. This isn't a fighting game. This isn't Street Fighter 6, right? So I feel like comparing it to that is disingenuous. I feel like compared to other arena fighters, how does it compare? It's a separate genre. So I feel like already the reviewer was being a bit biased. Now, it's not delusional like that guy from last week, but this is still a little bit delusional, okay? And then this is where it gets really delusional, right? So he says, just everything can be bought with Zenny, from new characters to costumes, etc., etc. You get this cash at a healthy rate. That never felt like I was being pressured to spend real money for any of it. Why? So he says there are microtransactions, like a $35 season pass. Okay, let me stop you right there. And what world is optional DLC microtransactions? When we think of microtransactions, we think, oh, spend X amount of money and you can get a bunch of Zenny. Spend X amount bunch of money and you can get these costumes. Spend X amount of money and you can get this. You can argue that optional season pass and music packs are things that you can buy, but that's not microtransactions. Correct me if I'm wrong, right? And the fact that he threw that in there is disingenuous once more. Like, why was that even mentioned? Like, in what world is DLC microtransactions that you don't have to buy? And then he complained about it not taking you directly to the PlayStation Store or some shit. Look, I'm just saying, right? I feel like IGN has to do better with their reviews, because at this point, why are people complaining about random shit? Now, for the most part, all the other stuff that he brought up for the game were relatively fair. He didn't say anything too crazy, but he did kind of bag on, like, say, the custom battle a little bit. He mentioned how, like, he doesn't think it's, like, too spectacular. He compared it to Mario Maker in universe mode in WWE games, and you could basically use the toolbox and special modifiers that limit characters what they can and can't do. It gives you the ability to make dream scenarios, but it's not robust enough for it to be something crazy like making out a whole saga, for instance. Like, he said that, which I feel like that's fair. Like, there's going to be limitations to that stuff. And he also mentioned online for Tenkaichi, when aside from Tenkaichi 3, what games had online? So I feel like this review was a little bit disingenuous, because again, he mentions things that didn't really need to be said. And quite frankly, if I was somebody who was really looking forward to an IGN review, I think I would quite literally go at the top of the steps and close my eyes. You take that with what you want to take. Basically, I'm saying that if you're taking IGN reviews serious and to the point where this is going to dictate if you're buying a game or not, I would say that you weren't ever going to buy the game in the first place. I feel like I've enjoyed this game a lot, and usually fast games, these frustrate me, but I feel like if you're a fan of the series, you're going to enjoy the game. Even if you're not a fan of the series, but you like arena fighters, you're going to enjoy the game. Pretty much anybody who is a fan of anime games are probably going to enjoy this game for the most part. I feel like the only people that are not going to enjoy this game are people who don't like arena fighters entirely. They just can't get into them. You're not gonna like this game, and I feel like the reviewer was a little bit biased when it came to that. He didn't say it, but he mentioned frame data, shit that you typically hear in the more traditional fighting games. So maybe he wished it was more of a fighting game, perhaps, but I don't know him. I can't get in his head, and I doubt IGN is going to make a response of any kind to little old me. So that's going to be it for this video. Do you think IGN giving Sparking Zero a 7 was justified, or should it have scored higher? Do you think they wanted to give it lower, like a 6? I feel like IGN needs to be careful. The Sparking Zero fans are crazy. Anyways, I'm makaisaiyan. What yo? I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.